Hello, dear classmates. My name is Jenny, and these are the definitions of the concepts that I could get from the readings. The first word is sociocultural. I defined it, or I could, the definition I could get from the readings was that sociocultural relates to the human consciousness of the world around us, around human, like the consciousness that we have about the world, understanding, recognizing, and identifying the other people and interaction with them as an important factor in the development of the own learning process. So, what is considered as sociocultural is not only um, the other person, right? Not only the interaction, but recognizing their beliefs and their background and how that interact with my own understanding of those concepts. The second definition, the second word is mediation. And I can say that it is the learner's ability to regulate or control their mental and communicative abilities. It is the creation and use of tools or symbols such as numbers, graphs, models, drawings, and linguistic symbols. So, as I said, like it's the learner's ability to regulate their mental and communicative processes. It's what the learner can do in order to express the message. Then the third one is the types of mediations. There are two types of mediations. The first one is self-regulation, which would be the learner's ability to plan, monitor, check, and evaluate self-performance. And then the other one would be the concept-based regulation. This one was a little bit more difficult to define, but I think it is the conscious use of symbols, the symbols that I just mentioned before, in specific social fields, right? Usually more evidence when the schooling process starts. And the article says that when the schooling process starts is when language actually becomes visible. Okay, the fourth definition is the zone of proximal development. Um, it was a little bit more difficult to get the definition of this, but I needed to read somewhere else in order to get what it was. And I think it is the range up to which children can develop according to their capacities, right? The instructor then will play a defining role in that because we challenge the student to go a little bit beyond to their current capacities, but not too far that the student cannot achieve or cope with those challenges or tasks that the instructor gives the student. One part of the text said, and I think it's pertinent to mention it in the definition, is that the zone of proximal development, it is achieving through meditation what is unachievable alone, taking into account the student's capacities. That would be the fourth definition of the list. Now, the definition of activity, the articles mention that into different moments. One, activity from the activity theory perspective. In that sense, I think activity is defined as the task that contains the objectives and the expectations that the researchers have when inquiring the students' performance. And the authors give two examples when they explain, or the conclusion that they reach is that when the student has a high motivation to speak, they may be more fluent but less accurate. But when the researcher specifically asks them to do something because of the researcher's expectation, they may perform maybe less fluently but more accurately. So that's the definition of activity according to the activity theory. But then when they are talking about the ecology of language, they define activity as something different. It would, like the definition that they give would be the set of practices where learners work together side by side on their own to interact and develop their understanding of the world. The learner wouldn't be seen as the passive agent, right? The learner in this ecology of language is autonomous, which means they have their own voice and are emotionally connected to their actions and speech. Yes. Then the sixth concept to define is the concept-based instruction. I think basically it is the instruction focused on the explicit knowledge of the relevant feature of the second language. Okay, so it is the instruction focused on the explicit knowledge of the relevant features of the L2 language. The seventh concept would be ecology of language, taking over the concept again. And the definition that the article provide is that it is a transdisciplinary endeavor since it conceives language as inseparable and as the core of education and vice versa. It is a way of thinking and a way of acting. The ecology of language, just like in nature, education faces some extreme stress issues that need to be addressed, studied, reflected upon, visioned, and transformed. So it's kind of a comparison, an analogy between like what learning or language is and then what nature is. Then what are the characteristics? That would be the last concept of ecology of language. There are some of them, there are a couple. 9 characteristics that the articles mentioned. The author said that they are not exclusive to the ecology of language. They may apply to other fields. But this is basically what they said, that this is basically what the research now should be focusing on. The first characteristic is relations. Ecology linguistics conceives the relationships between a learner and the environment as an opportunity for action or inhibition through language, right? Like through language, I can either control myself, express my thoughts. That's this relation that they talk about. Language is then a system of relations rather than a collection of objects. It's not just isolated items, isolated forms, but it's a system of relations, because it is not the same to have a specific form or to express that or to know how it works, but like how that connects to my, as the teacher said once, as my own memories, as like to my own experiences. So that's what the relations, according to the ecology of language, the feature of ecology of language that talks about relations. Then context. Context is the heart of ecology. It is what surrounds the learner, the learning, the instruction, the language, the reality. It is what shapes the way information is perceived. That would be the social filters, like from what I could understand, and sets the parameters on how it should be expressed. Then another characteristic is the patterns and systems. Ecology has some patterns and system rather than rules and structures, right? That are predetermined and predictable. They are fixed. Another characteristic is emergence. Language learning emerges when relatively easy elements combine together to form higher order system. So although the patterns are fixed, language learning, it's something that emerges according to the communication need, or any other thing. Then quality, that's another characteristic. It is the student's capacity to learn and broaden their mind through learning different subjects of interest. Another characteristic is the value. All actions produce value. Science should have a moral and a critical component. Then there's another characteristic that is critical. Language learning is contextual. It focuses on quality and values, and it requires a constant evaluation. That would be the critical component of what is happening versus what should be happening. It is a call to critical acting, like reflecting what should be happening, what is actually happening. Another characteristic is variability. Students are different, and these differences are relevant to their learning opportunities. Education system usually tends to homogenize, right? That was one of the discussions that we had in class. Although they vary, their policies try to homogenize and apply certain measures that may favor a certain part of the population at the same time. And then one of the last ones, because I already explained the activity one before, is diversity. It addresses the value of having different learners and teachers in class. That is, different kinds of people in a society rather than an homogeneous population. In ecology, more diversity is not necessarily better, but its reduction might be detrimental to the ecosystem. So the crucial variable is balance. It is not that the more varied the context or the kind of people that I have in the classroom, the better it's going to be. No, like it could be detrimental sometimes, according to what the text said. But they said that the crucial variable is balance, like not too much, not too different, or how can the teacher, mediate in this variability, or that's at least, I mean, diversity. That's at least what I could understand. This is a pretty long video. Some of the concepts I was not very sure about, but I'm sure we're gonna go over them during class. Have a nice day, and see you on Friday.